Star Scout was a very long year for me. It was very memorable in a good way, I guess. Um, what I guess I remember it most fondly for was the election process that we had to get a leadership position. We only had 6 leadership positions in the troop, and in a troop full of 60 kids, maybe about half of them are trying to get a leadership position to advance to Star, Life, or Eagle. It can be very difficult. So I ran for perhaps the least wanted position, the quartermaster. So what the quartermaster is supposed to do is they keep track of all of like the unit's equipment. For example, we had tents that we would use when we go camping. We'd have cooking utensils, light stoves, um, gas for said stoves. Um, we're quite, and then while you're on the campout, of course, you have to keep track of all of the equipment, the food, make sure everything is running smooth, and you have to be able to handle any issues that might come up with the equipment. Then you also keep track of the equipment. For example, when kids come in, they're going on a camping trip, they're supposed to meet with the quartermaster, and they check out the equipment, and you make sure the equipment is good when it leaves, and it's good when it comes back. And particularly that it's clean when it comes back, because you don't want um, like mold or anything growing on the tents because someone didn't pack it correctly or it was wet when it got packed. Same with the utensils. You want to make sure they're clean. There's no food on them still. Well, there's no mold either. So I ended up winning the quartermaster election. There were only 2 people running against me. And so one of the things I did, and this counted for some of my service hours, was where I reorganized how we had all of our equipment. So we went out and we purchased some boxes to hold all of the cooking utensils. We got everything out. We split it up in tents into the utensils that we had, and we assigned a box to every single patrol. So my patrol was the Wolf Patrol. So the Wolf Patrol had their own box, and there are 3 tents for our 9 members. And then, for example, the Scorpion Patrol had, I think, like 5 members. So they had their utensil box, they had their stove, and then they had their 2 tents for their 5 members. And we did that for all of them. So we gathered all the equipment, separated it into the different patrols, and then we had like these kind of like closet spaces in the back of the troop area where we kept them all. So we divided them up. We built some shelves and put them in there so that way everything stayed kind of separate and with every single patrol. So that way it made it easier to keep track and organize everything. So if the rattlesnake patrol wanted to get to go out on a camping trip, they would come to me. We'd sign up the equipment. We'd go back to where the rattlesnake equipment was, take it all out, inspect it, make sure it's all good, and then they would go and take it out and kind of simplify the process. And that was the system that was then continued to be used for the rest of my time there, even when I wasn't quartermaster the next 4 or 5 years. It was a lot of work being the quartermaster, and it was a lot of responsibility because you really have to make sure everything is clean because you can't have any dirty equipment being put away, and you have to make sure that equipment is functional. Otherwise, if your light stove doesn't work while you're out camping, then it looks like you're just eating the hot dog buns instead of hot dogs. Another aspect I really remember from Star was my border review. Most people say that their Eagle border review was their most difficult. Mine was the Star board. I'm not sure why. I think it was because I had 2 board members of like the Anthony Wayne Area Council that governs kind of like the entire like Fort Wayne to South Bend area of Indiana. 2 of them were there, and so they were on my board of review. It was, I think, 2.5 hours long. The average one is probably like 30 minutes to an hour. My Eagle one was only an hour. But the star board was 2 hours. I went through literally every single skill, every first aid skill that I had learned, every aspect of like uniform presentation, knowing the Scout Oath and Law, talking about like kind of the wider philosophy of scouting. I talked about my merit badges, how I earned them, what I learned from them, what I learned from my leadership position, what I did for my service hours. If it was a requirement before STAR, I was grilled on every single aspect of it. And then at the end, I ended up failing. And they told me to come back next week and try again. So I didn't know what I had necessarily gotten wrong, because they just don't tell you, oh, you got this wrong. They just ask you the question and then you answer. It's kind of like taking a test. So I went back and I studied that whole week. I studied so much. I read the Boy Scout handbook over and over again. Went over the outdoor code. I pretty much looked at everything. Tried, reviewing my answers for how what I did when I was doing my merit badges. But then I came back and I said, I'm ready to take my star board. And they said, well, you've passed. It was, I guess, just a test to see what happens in the face of adversity. I guess I didn't really fail the first time. They just wanted to see what I would do if I had failed. Because I guess some people, if they fail, you're bored. I guess they just quit. They just stop. But I guess I should have seen it coming when I saw that it was, you had to wait. I just had to come back next week, because normally it's, I think, like a 3-month process before you can take another board review again. So I guess that's why a lot of people quit if they fail.